You want toxic people to stop bothering you, then stop giving them what they came for, your reaction. Because the moment you stop explaining, defending, and proving yourself, they lose power. They thrive on your energy, not your silence. So, do this once. Set your boundary, go quiet, and stay calm. Watch how fast they disappear when they realize they can't control you anymore. Toxic people don't walk away because you fought back. They walk away because you stopped feeding them. Silence is your strongest response because it's the one thing toxic people can't manipulate. When you argue, explain, defend, or try to make them understand, you're giving them exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, your reaction. Silence removes all of that. It tells them they no longer have access to your emotional space. It's not weakness. It's control. It's you choosing peace over chaos, power over impulse. Most people think silence means surrender, but it's actually the opposite. It's the ultimate move of strength because you're saying, I don't need to prove myself to you. Toxic people thrive on drama. They love confusion, conflict, and emotional noise because that's how they measure their importance in your life. The louder you get, the stronger they feel. When you go silent, it cuts off their fuel supply. They can't twist your words. They can't play the victim. They can't drag you into endless cycles of argument. They're left alone with their own noise, and that's something they can't stand. Silence forces them to face the truth. They no longer have power over you. But silence doesn't mean passive. It means intentional. It means you've decided that not every attack deserves a counterattack. Not every insult deserves attention. Not every provocation deserves your presence. It's knowing that sometimes the best way to show your strength is by refusing to participate in their game. Because make no mistake, toxic people don't want resolution. They want reaction. They want you to lose your cool so they can say, see, you're the problem. Your silence denies them that satisfaction. It's uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to defending yourself, explaining your side, or trying to make peace. You'll feel like you're doing nothing, like you're letting them win. But the truth is, silence is not doing nothing. It's doing something powerful. It's teaching them that access to you has conditions. It's showing them that they can't pull you into chaos on demand. And slowly, they realize that pushing you no longer gets the same results. The hooks they used to use, anger, guilt, manipulation, they stop working. That's when they start losing interest. Silence also gives you something they can't touch: clarity. When you stop responding, your mind gets quiet too. You start to see patterns you missed before. You realize how predictable they are, how repetitive their tactics have been, how often they use the same emotional traps. You see that all the energy you spent trying to be understood was energy wasted on someone committed to misunderstanding you. In silence, you find perspective. You start asking different questions. Not, why are they like this? But, why do I keep giving them the chance to be? The beauty of silence is that it's simple, but it's not easy. It takes discipline. It takes self-control. It takes being okay with not having the last word. And that's where real strength lives, in the ability to walk away without proving a point. Because when you no longer need to prove your worth, your integrity, or your truth to anyone, you become free. Toxic people lose their grip when they realize you don't need their validation anymore. They'll test you. They'll try harder at first. They'll poke louder, accuse deeper, even guilt trip you for your silence. That's because your silence threatens their control. When you stop feeding their ego, they get desperate for a reaction. That's when you hold the line. You stay quiet, calm, composed. You let their words fall flat. Because the moment you break your silence just to defend yourself, you start the cycle all over again. And toxic people love cycles. They live in them. Silence also redefines the balance of power. The one who can stay calm has the power. The one who reacts first loses it. Every word you don't say becomes a wall between you and their chaos. Every reaction you withhold becomes proof of your growth. Over time, your silence becomes louder than any argument you could ever make. It says, "You don't get to control my emotions anymore." It says, "I'm not available for your drama." It says, "You can talk, but I'm not listening." And that's devastating to someone who survives on attention. There's a kind of peace that only comes from silence. The peace of knowing you don't have to fight for your dignity anymore. You don't have to chase understanding from people who enjoy misunderstanding you. You don't have to prove your kindness, your loyalty, your truth. You've already shown it. Silence is the final boundary. It's the quiet exit that says, "I'm done explaining myself to people committed to chaos." It's not coldness. It's clarity. It's not punishment. It's protection. And once you learn to use silence intentionally, it changes everything. You start noticing how people reveal themselves when you stop talking. The ones who truly care will respect your space. The ones who only wanted control will start to panic. That's how you know who deserves to stay in your life. Silence filters out the noise. It separates those who understand your boundaries from those who only wanted to break them. Most people are afraid of silence because it feels like losing control. But the truth is, silence is the moment you take control back. It's the pause before you decide what deserves your energy. It's the breath before you respond or choose not to. It's what separates the emotionally mature from the emotionally reactive. Toxic people don't know how to handle someone who refuses to play the game. They're used to chaos. Silence confuses them. It unsettles them because now they can't predict you. They can't control the outcome. And that's when they start backing away. It's not just about staying quiet in an argument. It's about creating distance. Emotional, verbal, and sometimes physical distance. It's choosing not to text back when the message is designed to bait you. It's choosing not to explain yourself when someone's already made up their mind. It's choosing not to engage when someone's trying to provoke guilt or shame. It's the strength to say nothing, not because you don't have a response, but because your peace matters more. There's a confidence that comes from silence too. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. You stop needing everyone to know your side of the story. You stop needing to be liked by people who never respected you. You stop needing closure from those who caused the confusion. Silence gives you that closure. Because the moment you stop chasing it, you already have it. Toxic people lose their hold the second you realize you don't owe them access, explanation, or emotion. Silence doesn't fix them, it frees you. It breaks the invisible cord that tied your emotions to their behavior. It reminds you that your peace is your responsibility, not their permission. And when you master that kind of silence, the calm, unshakable kind, it doesn't just make toxic people leave you alone. It makes them realize they can't touch you anymore. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of self-respect, power, and freedom. Boundaries speak louder than arguments because they communicate without chaos. You don't have to yell, explain, or justify them. You just have to hold them. Toxic people don't respect words. They test actions. They'll nod when you talk about limits, but they'll push the moment they see a crack in your resolve. That's why boundaries are not about what you say, but about what you enforce. They're the invisible walls that protect your peace, your time, your emotions, and your energy from people who drain them. A toxic person will always try to convince you that boundaries are selfish. They'll make you feel guilty for saying no, for creating space, or for putting yourself first. But here's the truth. They only say that because your boundaries stop them from using you. When you start saying, "No, I won't accept that," or "I need space from this conversation," you're not being cruel, you're being clear. And clarity is something toxic people can't stand because it exposes their manipulation. Boundaries reveal who people really are. The healthy ones respect them. The toxic ones get offended by them. That reaction alone tells you everything you need to know. Setting boundaries isn't about punishing others. It's about protecting yourself. It's not about control. It's about clarity. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between exhaustion and peace. Boundaries are you saying, this is what I will allow, and this is what I won't. It's a line drawn in peace, not anger. And the moment you start enforcing those lines, people begin to understand that your kindness has limits. That's important because kindness without boundaries becomes a trap. You end up overgiving, over-explaining, and overcompensating just to keep people happy. But the people you keep that way will never respect you. Boundaries change that dynamic completely. The first time you set a boundary, you'll feel uncomfortable. You'll question yourself. You'll wonder if you're doing the right thing. That's normal. It's the discomfort of breaking an old pattern. You've probably spent years being the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who smooths things over. Setting boundaries feels like rebellion to someone who's been taught to always be available. But the moment you see how peaceful it feels, you'll realize it's not rebellion. It's recovery. It's recovering your time, your self-respect, your emotional balance. It's you learning that not every call deserves an answer, not every demand deserves compliance, and not every problem is yours to fix. Boundaries also teach people how to treat you. Every time you enforce one, you send a message, I value myself. People who care about you will adjust. People who don't will try to guilt you. Toxic people especially will test you. They'll ignore your boundaries, minimize them, or flip the script to make you feel unreasonable. That's where consistency matters. You don't have to argue. You don't have to justify. You just repeat your boundary and step back. Over time, your consistency becomes louder than any debate. They learn that pushing you has consequences. They learn that you won't bend just to avoid conflict. And slowly, they stop trying. Boundaries aren't walls that shut everyone out. They're doors that let the right people in. They filter your relationships, making sure you're surrounded by respect instead of resentment. When you start enforcing them, you'll notice your circle getting smaller, but also healthier. You'll stop chasing approval and start attracting mutual respect. That's what boundaries do. They create space for peace to live where chaos used to be. Most people think boundaries will make them lose relationships, but the truth is, boundaries only threaten relationships that were built on taking advantage of you. If someone leaves because you finally set a limit, they weren't there for you. They were there for what you could give. And once you see that clearly, you stop mourning their absence. You start valuing your presence. You realize that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. Because when you don't set boundaries, toxic people will drain you until there's nothing left to protect. There's power in not explaining your boundaries too much. When you start justifying them, you give toxic people an opening to debate them. Boundaries don't need defending, they need enforcing. A simple, that doesn't work for me is enough. No speech, no defense, no guilt. The strength of your boundary is in your calmness. You're not asking for permission, you're informing. You're stating your standard and standing by it. That quiet confidence is what makes toxic people uncomfortable. They can't manipulate someone who's sure of their worth. Boundaries also redefine your self-image. You start to see yourself not as a victim of other people's behavior, but as the gatekeeper of your own peace. You realize you don't have to tolerate disrespect just because you understand where it comes from. You can have empathy without access. You can forgive without returning to the same pattern. You can love people and still protect yourself from their chaos. That's what healthy strength looks like. It's firm, not cruel. It's clear, not cold. When you start enforcing boundaries, your life becomes quieter. The noise fades. The drama lessens. You stop being pulled into emotional storms that aren't yours to weather. You begin to notice how much energy you used to waste on people who gave nothing back. You start using that energy for things that actually matter: your growth, your peace, your purpose. Boundaries create that space. They give you back control of your emotional resources. A boundary is a mirror too. It reflects who you've become. The old you might have argued, pleaded, or compromised just to keep someone around. The new you doesn't need to. You've learned that peace is better than approval. You've learned that no is a full sentence. You've learned that protecting your peace is more valuable than protecting someone's comfort. And that realization is what toxic people fear the most. Because when you stop needing them to understand, they lose control. Setting boundaries doesn't just change your relationships, it changes your energy. You start walking differently. You speak with more clarity, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you finally know where you stand. People sense it. They know you're not easily swayed anymore. They know you're not available for manipulation. That quiet strength makes toxic people retreat because they can't control someone who has limits. At its core, boundaries are about self-respect. They say, I know what I deserve, and I won't accept less. They remind you that you have the right to peace, to space, to say no without apology. And the moment you start believing that, toxic people lose their influence. They realize you're not a source of endless tolerance anymore. You're a person who values their time and their peace. And that's someone they can't exploit. Detachment destroys their control because toxic people feed on emotional connection, the unhealthy kind. They need you invested, reactive, and constantly trying to fix things. The moment you detach, that power disappears. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop being controlled by what doesn't serve your peace. It's the art of staying calm in chaos, of seeing their manipulation for what it is, and refusing to let it dictate your mood. When you detach, you stop dancing to their tune. You stop reacting every time they push a button. You start observing instead of absorbing. And that shift, that quiet emotional distance, is what toxic people can't stand. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's understanding that someone's behavior is a reflection of them, not of you. It's realizing that you don't have to take every comment personally, every insult seriously, or every attack emotionally. Toxic people depend on your engagement. They want you to defend, explain, justify, argue, because that keeps you hooked. But when you detach, you no longer play. You listen without reacting, you see without judging, and you leave without warning. You stop explaining why something hurt. You stop expecting them to understand. You stop needing closure from people who profit from confusion. That's detachment. It's emotional independence. Most people confuse detachment with indifference, but they're not the same. Indifference is apathy. It says, I don't care. Detachment is strength. It says, I care, but I won't let this destroy me. It's the difference between feeling everything and being consumed by nothing. It's when you learn to say, this behavior isn't mine to carry. That's where freedom begins. Because toxic people only control you through your emotions. Anger, guilt, fear, hope. Detachment cuts those strings one by one. Detachment also creates emotional balance. When you stop reacting to everything, you start thinking clearly. You begin to see patterns instead of just pain. You recognize manipulation faster. You stop falling for guilt traps and emotional blackmail. Toxic people can't guilt you when you no longer depend on their approval. They can't shame you when you no longer seek their validation. They can't provoke you when you're no longer emotionally available for their chaos. Your detachment becomes your armor, It, it keeps your peace intact no matter what storm they bring. The first step to detachment is acceptance. Accept that you can't change them. Accept that no amount of love, patience, or explaining will fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. The moment you stop trying to save them, you save yourself. Detachment starts when you stop chasing explanations and start focusing on your response. You stop asking, why are they like this? And start asking, why do I keep reacting? That's the pivot point when you shift from trying to control others to mastering your own emotions. Detachment also teaches you the power of pause. Toxic people thrive on quick reactions. They want to see you flustered, angry, defensive. But when you pause before responding, you take that power back. You give yourself time to think, to breathe, to choose how you want to respond. Sometimes the best reaction is no reaction at all. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's walking away. Detachment gives you that freedom, the freedom to respond with intention instead of impulse. It's not easy, especially if you've been emotionally entangled for a long time. Detaching feels unnatural at first because toxic relationships condition you to overinvest. You start believing that if you just try harder, love deeper, explain better, things will change. But they don't. They never do, because the problem isn't your effort, it's their need for control. When you detach, you stop trying harder. You stop fixing what's not yours. You stop showing up for people who only show up when they need something. That's when the balance shifts. Toxic people will notice your detachment immediately. They'll sense that emotional distance and panic. They'll accuse you of being cold, selfish, distant. They'll do everything they can to pull you back. Guilt, anger, fake apologies, love bombing. That's their way of saying, I can't control you anymore. When that happens, don't explain. Don't defend your peace. Just maintain it. Your calmness becomes your boundary. Your lack of reaction becomes your message. You're not the same person they used to manipulate. Detachment also changes how you see conflict. You start realizing that not every argument is worth winning. Some people argue to find truth. Others argue to maintain control. With toxic people, it's always the latter. When you detach, you stop trying to win and start choosing peace. You start recognizing that your silence can end a fight faster than your words ever could. You start seeing that walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Because the one who walks away with their peace intact always wins in the long run. There's another side to detachment, self-reflection. When you stop reacting, you start noticing your triggers. You begin to understand why certain words or actions used to get to you. Maybe it's old wounds. Maybe it's unmet needs. Maybe it's the habit of over-caring. Detachment gives you space to heal those parts of yourself. You stop needing others to change so you can feel okay. You start giving that validation to yourself. And once you do, toxic people lose all leverage. Detachment is powerful because it shifts your focus inward. You stop wasting time analyzing their behavior and start investing in your response. You stop giving your peace to people who haven't earned it. You stop letting someone else's chaos dictate your mood. That's when you realize the truth. No one can drain your peace without your permission. And when you stop granting that permission, you become unreachable. The beauty of detachment is in its quiet confidence. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to prove it. You just live it. You start saying less, reacting less, explaining less, and everything around you starts to change. People sense your energy shift. Toxic people feel it first because their control depended on your emotional availability. When you detach, they lose their script. They don't know how to interact with someone who doesn't take the bait. That confusion makes them fade away on their own. Detachment also teaches you what real strength looks like. It's not shouting, it's not proving, it's not defending. It's staying calm when everything around you is chaos. It's keeping your peace even when someone tries to provoke you. It's looking at manipulation and saying, I see what you're doing, and it won't work. That's real control. Because when you control your reactions, you control your world. The more you practice detachment, the lighter you feel. You stop carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. You stop taking responsibility for how others choose to behave. You realize that your peace doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or apology. It depends on your boundaries and your discipline to maintain them. Detachment doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. It allows you to care without losing yourself. It lets you love people without letting them destroy your peace. Over time, you start seeing detachment as a lifestyle. You respond calmly, walk away easily, and stay centered in situations that used to drain you. You no longer need closure, validation, or control. You simply choose peace every single time. That's how detachment destroys their control. It takes the power they used to have over your emotions and puts it back where it belongs, with you. Self-respect ends their access because it changes the entire dynamic of power between you and toxic people. When you truly respect yourself, you stop tolerating disrespect disguised as love, manipulation disguised as care, and guilt disguised as concern. Self-respect is the silent signal that tells people exactly how to treat you. It's not something you demand with words, it's something you enforce with actions. The moment you start valuing yourself, the people who benefited from your low self-worth begin to lose access. Because toxic people can only reach you at the level where you doubt your own value. Once that doubt is gone, so are they. Self-respect is built in the small moments. The ones where you decide not to chase, not to explain, not to beg someone to treat you right. It's when you stop showing up to conversations that always end the same way. It's when you stop forgiving behavior that hasn't changed. It's when you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. Each of those moments reinforces your worth. Toxic people hate that because their control depends on your insecurity. The less you respect yourself, the easier it is for them to manipulate you. But when you begin to see your own value clearly, their words lose power, their silence stops hurting, and their approval stops mattering. People with self-respect don't argue about how they should be treated. They just leave situations that violate their peace. They understand that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's saying, I don't need to stay somewhere that forces me to forget my worth. Toxic people can't stand that kind of strength because it removes their leverage. They can't guilt you with silence. They can't bait you with blame. They can't control you with fear. You become unpredictable to them because your emotions are no longer their playground. That's the point when they start losing interest, not because you fought back, but because you stopped fighting for something that never respected you in the first place. Self-respect changes how you communicate too. You stop over-explaining, stop apologizing for your boundaries, stop begging to be understood. You start saying things like, that doesn't work for me, and you mean it. You stop tolerating half efforts, mixed signals, and conditional love. You stop trying to earn the very things you deserve. That energy shift is powerful. It makes you magnetic to peace and repellent to toxicity. Because toxic people aren't drawn to self-respect. They're repelled by it. They can't survive in spaces where their manipulation doesn't work. They look for cracks in your confidence, and when there aren't any, they move on. Self-respect also helps you redefine love. You start realizing that love without respect isn't love, it's dependency. It's control. It's an emotional leash dressed up as connection. When you respect yourself, you stop confusing attachment for affection. You understand that someone's inconsistency is not your fault to fix. You stop tolerating, almost, love. The kind that keeps you guessing, doubting, and waiting. You choose peace over promises. You start loving yourself the way you wish others had loved you, fully, consistently, and without conditions. And when you do that, toxic people lose the power to make you beg for the bare minimum. There's a quiet confidence that comes from self-respect. You don't have to prove your worth anymore. You don't have to compete for attention or settle for scraps of affection. You stop chasing closure and start creating it. You stop needing validation because you already give it to yourself. That shift terrifies toxic people because it means you're no longer emotionally available for manipulation. They can't guilt you for having standards, can't shame you for walking away, can't confuse you into staying. Your presence becomes a privilege, not a default. And people who don't value that privilege naturally fade away. Self-respect also rewires your mindset. You stop asking, why don't they treat me right? And start asking, why did I allow it for so long? That's not self-blame, it's self-awareness. It's the moment you realize that you can't control other people's behavior, but you can control your standards. You start holding yourself accountable for protecting your peace. You start believing that no is a complete sentence and enough is a decision, not a reaction. You no longer settle for being half respected because you know what full respect feels like, and you won't accept less again. Toxic people thrive on inconsistency, and self-respect destroys that environment. They want you uncertain, emotional, and easily swayed. But when you respect yourself, you become consistent. You follow through on your words. You keep your boundaries firm. You stop going back and forth with people who only show up when it benefits them. That consistency makes you powerful. It tells the world and yourself that your peace is not negotiable. And once you set that standard, toxic people either rise to meet it or remove themselves. Either outcome is peace. You also start understanding that silence can be an act of self-respect. You stop engaging in arguments that go nowhere. You stop responding to every insult, every provocation, every attempt to draw you back in. Your silence says, I've said enough. I've given enough. I'm done. It's not about winning. It's about protecting your energy. Because the truth is self-respect doesn't need to announce itself. It's seen in your calmness, your discipline, and your ability to walk away without bitterness. That's the kind of strength that confuses toxic people. They don't know how to fight someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Self-respect also means forgiving yourself for the times you didn't have it. For the times you stayed too long, tolerated too much, explained too often. It's realizing that growth begins the moment you decide to stop betraying yourself for others. You start honoring your feelings, trusting your instincts, and believing your own boundaries. You stop giving people more chances than they've earned. You stop calling your pain loyalty. You stop carrying guilt for choosing yourself. Because self-respect isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. Over time, your life starts to look different. The drama fades, the chaos quiets, the patterns break. You attract people who mirror the respect you show yourself. You start having conversations that build, not drain. You start feeling comfortable in your own company. That's when you realize peace was never about fixing them. It was always about respecting you. Toxic people lose access because they no longer speak the language you live by. You've elevated. You've grown. You've learned that self-respect isn't a defense. It's a filter. And once it's in place, only peace gets through.